He ends up falling in love with the beautiful girl he met on the street and takes her home. I'm Kira Anime, leave a like and let's go. It all starts one night. A young man is returning home and spots a girl with reddish hair in the distance. She immediately catches his attention and with his usual confidence, he decides to cross the street to talk to her. However, upon noticing his approach, the girl moves away. Excited, he doesn't notice a truck approaching and ends up being run over. He feels life slipping away quickly, but before everything goes dark, he hears a conversation between the girl and the driver. It is then that he discovers that, in fact, she was the one who threw herself at him, protecting him from the impact and taking his place. There, lying on the asphalt, he can only see her moving away towards the moon, becoming even more fascinating in his eyes. Despite the pain, he gathers the strength to ask the driver where she went, but the man insists that he stay quiet, considering his critical condition. Even so, he drags himself determinedly to a bus station where he finally finds her. Surprised to see him, the girl decides to help take care of him. He can barely speak, completely mesmerized by her manner, her scent, and her striking presence. Without hesitation, she takes off her coat and wraps it around him to warm him before going to seek help. When she turns to leave, he tries to hold her but she stops him, explaining that his legs are broken and the adrenaline from the accident is wearing off. Soon, he will no longer be able to move. She says goodbye and leaves, while he, overwhelmed by pain, feels his body collapse. His eyes close and he sees her disappear into the snow. However, in the midst of suffering, an impulse arises within him. The passion that arose in an instant makes him gather the strength to shout and ask her to wait. The girl tries to make him stop, warning that if he keeps straining his body, he might end up dying. But he, with a weak voice, responds that, seeing her leave that night, she seemed like a princess heading to the moon, someone desired by everyone, but for whom no one fought. It was then that he understood. When you love someone, you must fight, or that person will disappear forever. And it was there that he decided that, even if it cost him his life, he would go after her. Taking a deep breath, he gathers courage and declares that he has loved her since the moment he saw her, even without knowing her name. Then he asks if she would go out with him. The girl, surprised by the confession, starts to walk away. His heart tightens, but then suddenly she stops, turns around and says she would go out with him if they got married first. Without thinking twice, overcome with emotion, he responds yes, that he would marry her and would never regret that choice. But in the next moment, pain overwhelms him again and he faints. Sometime later, he wakes up in the hospital with the flowers swaying in the wind and winter already gone. As he recovers from his injuries, he reflects on everything that happened and starts to wonder if the girl's response was just a kind way to reject him without being cruel. Additionally, he keeps thinking about what her name might be. Upon being discharged, he tries to continue his life but fails to get into the university he aimed for, ending up losing a year. Despite this, he does not give up and continues to be the best student possible. Several schools try to recruit him, but he refuses them all, as his true focus is finding the girl from that night. To do this, he starts working tirelessly, occupying all his time in the hope of seeing her again one day. But she never appears. To avoid worrying his parents with his exhausting routine, he rents a small apartment and moves. On a lonely night, lost in his own thoughts, he wishes more than anything to see her once more. As if it were a dream, the intercom rings. He opens the door and under the silvery moonlight, there she is. The girl who never left his thoughts looks at him and smiles softly. Then she greets him saying they finally met again. She then introduces herself. Her name is Tsukasa. Before he can react, she asks if she can come in because she needs to talk about something important. Speechless, he invites her in, completely paralyzed by the charm of her presence. They sit down and she slides a paper across the table, asking him to sign it. Curious, he asks what it's about and she replies, it's the promise they made that night. She recalls that to be together, they should get married. He is surprised, but Tsukasa clarifies that if he doesn't want to, it's okay. She will simply leave. Without losing a second, he grabs the paper and states that he never said he didn't want to. Even with the time that has passed, he still loves her, and nothing will change that. A bit embarrassed for saying that out loud, he takes a deep breath and starts filling out the document almost without reading it. Upon finishing, he hands the paperwork to her, who then declares that she will accompany him to the registry office to make the marriage official. This seems a bit sudden to him, but without hesitation, he decides to follow her. On the way, Tsukasa starts saying his name and asks how he would feel with her last name. Yusaki comments that he always found his own name strange, but she explains that, actually, the name Nasa is very special to her, and she even finds it charming. This makes Yusaki feel more at ease, as if somehow everything had fallen into place. When they arrive at the registry office, they are informed that, since they are minors, they need parental consent. After submitting the documents, the clerk congratulates them on their engagement and leaving Yusaki a little embarrassed. As they leave, Tsukasa asks if he would like to walk holding hands. Still unsure, he asks if he can really do that. She smiles and reminds him that now that they are married, he can hold her hand whenever he wants. Juki, all nervous, holds her hand, feeling its softness, and thinks to himself that this is the best moment of his life. He can finally hold her hand whenever he wants. However, he ends up squeezing a bit more than he should, making her laugh and warn that he was holding too tightly. Tsukasa, noticing his excitement, comments that she is not convinced he really understood, and that he ended up saying that out loud. Yusaki, all awkward, apologizes. She asks if they are already married, he confirms, and she, with a smile, says that then he can hold her hand whenever he wants. The two continue walking back home, and Tsukasa, curious, asks if he has 2 mattresses. Yuki responds that he only has 1, which leaves Tsukasa even more intrigued. Later, Yaki is lying in bed, reflecting on the marriage and the fact that he can finally hold her hand. He realizes they will have to share the space and soon notices that the bed is too small for both of them. Thinking about buying a new bed online, he realizes it wouldn't arrive in time, so he starts arranging pillows to try to find a way for them to sleep comfortably together. At that moment, Tsukasa enters the room and, noticing what he is doing, comments that the way he arranged it will be uncomfortable for sleeping. Yusaki, surprised, asks since when she was there and why she didn't notify him earlier. Tsukasa explains that the door was already open and she didn't want to disturb the neighbors with the intercom noise. She says she was watching him from the moment he started arranging the bed. Yusaki, curious, asks what she was doing and she replies that she was getting her suitcase, which was stored in a closet. Then, Yaki asks if her family wouldn't be worried about her absence. Tsukasa replies that actually she doesn't have a place to return to anymore. This makes Yusaki nervous, but she quickly adds that she will stay there that night and every other night because they are now married and will live together. She also comments that Yusaki's bed is too small for both of them. Without thinking much, Yusaki replies that he would sleep on the floor with just a blanket if necessary, so she would be comfortable. However, Tsukasa, smiling, says that won't be necessary as she will spend the night in a hotel. This makes Yusaki a little sad, not knowing how to make everything work so they can live together. Seeing his disappointment, Tsukasa asks him to calm down and says he doesn't need to worry. Her calm manner makes Yusaki feel more secure, and without thinking, he kneels and asks for her hand in marriage again. Tsukasa, surprised, responds that she already knew the reason and that it would be silly not to understand. Then she asks him the same question. Yaki, all embarrassed, replies that his reason is that he loves her. Tsukasa smiles and says that was exactly why she married him, because she would only marry someone who truly loved her. Yusaki, curious, asks why she loves him, but she replies that it's something she won't tell, and bids him farewell. Yusaki, a little lost, accompanies her to the door and, seeing her leave, feels a sense of abandonment, afraid she might disappear again like last time. Before she leaves for good, he calls her and asks her not to go. He says he will go to a store to buy a mattress so she doesn't have to spend the night out. Tsukasa, smiling, replies that the mattress should be memory foam then. Soon, the two go to a large store full of mattresses, and Yusaki begins to explain the differences between the models and their prices, assuring her that she can choose whatever she wants without worrying about the cost. Tsukasa, smiling, says that this will be her husband's first gift. In the midst of all this, Yaki realizes that it's almost like a date. He gets excited and tries to hold her hand. After all, she is now officially his wife. Tsukasa, without hesitation, holds his hand too, and together they start choosing the ideal mattress. After a while, they return to Yaki's apartment and he starts unpacking the new mattresses. Yusaki lays out Tsukasa's mattress and she, excited, immediately lies down on it to test it. Shy, she invites Yusaki to lie down next to her, but he quickly responds that he bought the mattress for her to be the first to use it. After a while, Tsukasa asks where the bathroom is. Yusaki, a little embarrassed, responds that he doesn't have one at home and usually takes a bath in a public bath in the morning. Upon hearing this, Tsukasa comments that for her to sleep there, a lot is still missing. Then she suggests they go out together to buy what is necessary so they can rest properly. Minutes later, with everything already bought, Tsukasa goes to the fitting room to change. Yusaki also wanted to change clothes, but she stops him, saying he can change wherever he wants, as it's not a problem. Yusaki, shy, responds that he wouldn't do that, because he would be embarrassed. Tsukasa, laughing, says it's okay because she would also be embarrassed if someone saw her changing. When she comes out of the fitting room with her hair tied up, Yusaki watches her and thinks she looks even more beautiful like that. At bedtime, Yusaki, excited, notices that Tsukasa is already in a deep sleep while he can't sleep, nervous and excited. He turns to watch her and at that moment, she moves and ends up off the mattress. Her hair, which was tied up, comes loose and falls softly. Yusaki, without thinking, gets up to fix it and cover her so she doesn't catch a cold. But seeing her lying there, the atmosphere makes him very nervous. He looks at his new wife and feels like he wants their first kiss to happen with her awake. Before he does anything, Tsukasa moves and wakes up. He gets scared, thinking he was caught in the act, but she just gets up to drink water. Relieved, Yusaki lies back down. When she returns, she throws herself onto the bed and, without noticing, covers herself with his blanket, leaving him cold. The next morning, Yusaki wakes up and sees Tsukasa a bit confused, with messy hair and 2 blankets over her. As she starts taking off her pajamas without realizing Yusaki is still in the room, he, a bit embarrassed, asks her to wait since he's still there. Then, he leaves the room so she can change comfortably. Tsukasa comments that there's too much light in the room to change there. Yusaki, nervous, decides to wait outside. When he returns to the kitchen, Tsukasa is already there. And she asks if he called her again by the house name. Yusaki confirms, and Tsukasa, reflecting a bit, says that now that they share the same last name, she should call him differently. And with a smile, she says that after thinking, she will call him Nasa. This leaves Yusaki completely flustered, and he starts to feel butterflies in his stomach. The next day, Tsukasa offers to make breakfast, and Yusaki, still with that silly smile on his face, just watches. When Tsukasa opens the fridge, she finds only one type of food. Yusaki, very calm, says that it's the best for maintaining health and full of vitamins, without wasting anything. Tsukasa laughs, finding it funny, and starts preparing a variety of dishes for breakfast, leaving Yusaki impressed with her skill. After eating, she asks about the public baths that Yusaki mentioned the night before, and he replies that they would go there after breakfast. Then she asks if he has soap and shampoo for her, and Yusaki, without thinking much, says he has some spare ones, but ends up discovering that the ones he has are not suitable for her. So they both decide to stop by a store before heading to the public bath, so she can buy what she needs. When they arrive, they find Kanen, one of the employees and the owner's daughter. She looks surprised at Yusaki and Tsukasa, and comments that after studying so much with Yusaki, she thought he wasn't interested in girls anymore, which makes Yusaki embarrassed, quickly responding that yes, he is attracted to women, especially Tsukasa. Kanen, laughing, says they look like a couple, and Yusaki, all awkward, responds that they are not just a couple, but have been married since the day before. This leaves Kanen shocked, but happy with the news. She says that as a way of celebration, she will let them enter the bath for free. Tsukasa thanks her for the gesture and decides to go in first. Akinsako Nin says side now. When she says goodbye to Yusaki, he is about to enter too, but Kanen pulls him back and says he can only enter for free if he tells what happened, how they got married. Curious, she asks how old Yusaki is, and he replies that he is 16, which leaves Kanen completely surprised, to the point of shouting that he has a peculiar taste for younger girls, causing a commotion. After this confusion, Kanen asks when the ceremony would be, and Yusaki, somewhat unsure of what to say, comments that he hadn't thought about having a ceremony because he thinks it's an unnecessary expense. Kanen feels a bit disappointed and asks when he would give a ring, and Yusaki, not very concerned, replies that the ring isn't that essential. This makes her sigh and ask if he at least proposed. Yusaki, a bit embarrassed, admits he didn't, which makes Kanen comment, somewhat philosophically, that in reality, neither the ceremony, nor the ring, nor the proposal are that necessary. She says that the essential thing is that if he married Tsukasa, it was for love, and that now his responsibility is to protect her, take care of her, and make her happy. Kanen's words, despite her age, make Yusaki reflect, and motivated by that speech, he decides he will live to make Tsukasa happy, even without a ring or ceremony. Yusaki in turn starts to remember the accident, how he felt, and how he almost died. That moment frightens him, and he wakes up startled, trying to remember reality. Soon Aya appears, greeting Yusaki, and mentions that she has already met Tsukasa. Yusaki confirms that Tsukasa is from his family, and Aya starts telling Tsukasa that thanks to Yusaki, the public baths were saved. All this because after poor management and some embezzlement by Aya's grandfather, the baths were on the brink of bankruptcy. It was Yusaki who, with his help, doubled the number of customers and saved the place. Tsukasa grateful smiles, but Yusaki with humility says that it was Aya herself who saved the place with her dedication. Meanwhile, Tsukasa starts to notice that there is some tension in the air between the two, so she asks how Yusaki knows Aya. Yusake, a bit unsure of how to explain, says he met her at school when they were friends. Already in the apartment, Tsukasa begins to feel a loneliness she never imagined. She recalls the walk she took after the accident, when she felt invisible with the blood marking the snow, and wondering how much further she would have to walk to find someone waiting for her at home, someone who would welcome her with affection. Now, alone in the apartment, she questions if Yusake will really keep his promise to accompany her. She starts cleaning the place, trying to occupy her mind, but the silence around her makes her feel even more alone. When Tsukasa begins to inspect the apartment, she is surprised to notice that Yusake had already left everything organized, something she didn't expect. But it doesn't shock her either, since he has always been so methodical. Then, she decides to take a look in the closet, trying to see if there is anything out of place. But imagining that she might find something too personal, she hesitates and ends up deciding not to look there. Then she decides to prepare some food to give Yusaku a warm welcome. But she is unsure if she will have time before lunch, not knowing exactly what to do. In the midst of these thoughts, the doorbell rings and Tsukasa, thinking it might be Yusaku, goes to answer the door. However, upon opening, she finds her sister Chitu. Chitu greets her and with a tone of disdain, comments that she is surprised to see Tsukasa in such a modest apartment. Tsukasa, out of patience, interrupts her, closing the door in her sister's face, but Chitu doesn't give up and starts knocking repeatedly, asking to be heard. Tsukasa, irritated, asks what she wants, and Chitu responds that both the great aunt and she were worried about Tsukasa's sudden disappearance. Tsukasa, without hesitation, responds that if she was still there, she would be a burden to others and asks if the great aunt knew that Chitu was looking for her. Chitu, taken by surprise, says that everything she was doing was for Tsukasa and tries to hug her, but Tsukasa steps back, rejecting the gesture. Tsukasa calmly suggests that Chitu go back and tell the great aunt that she is already married. This surprises Chitu even more, but Tsukasa reassures her, saying that in a few days they would introduce themselves to everyone and then they could be at peace. With that, Tsukasa says goodbye and closes the door. Minutes later, Yusaku leaves the apartment and finds Chitu sitting on the stairs leading to the floor where he lives. Seeing her crying, he stops and approaches to comfort her, unaware that she is Tsukasa's sister. After calming her down, Chitu asks what he intended to do, and Yusaku replies that he was looking for a place to propose to Tsukasa, which leaves her perplexed. But before she can say anything else, Tsukasa appears at the door and, seeing them talking, comments that he heard her voice and came out to understand what was happening. Yusaku explains that he remembered he only had one key and that she couldn't live without him. Upon hearing this, Chitu is shocked and furious to discover that Yusaku is her sister's husband. In a fit of rage, she tries to attack him, but Yusaku, trying to stay calm, asks Tsukasa if she knows her sister well. Tsukasa calmly confirms that Chitu is the daughter of the people who took care of her. Yusaku then introduces himself to Chitu, who in turn becomes defensive, clearly distrustful of him. He tries to maintain his composure and suggests it would be better to talk more calmly, inviting Chitu to enter the apartment for a serene dialogue. Chitu, unconvinced that Yusaku is a good choice for her sister, decides to forcibly take him to her house to confront him. Along the way, she starts making unfounded accusations, trying to reveal lies about him and his relationship with Tsukasa. She then calls her maids, Aurora and Charlotte, to help her, but things do not go as she expected. And the two unintentionally end up creating an embarrassing situation for Chitu, since what she really wanted were compromising photos of Yusaku and Tsukasa. Taking advantage of the confusion, Yusaku escapes through the shadows. Meanwhile, Chitu and her servants start searching for him around the house, and Yusaku, hearing their voices, hides in a room with a familiar scent very similar to Tsukasa's. While investigating the surroundings, he comes across a special box containing a shining moonstone. Upon closer inspection, he notices that the stone is carefully stored and the box has detailed inscriptions. At that moment, Charlotte bursts in, forcefully opening the door and attempting to strike Yusaku with a sword, believing he had trespassed into a restricted area. However, during the confrontation, Charlotte's sword ends up hitting the glass of the box that held the moonstone, breaking it. Everyone is astonished, and Yusaku promptly requests that tools be brought to repair the box. While making the repair, Chitu asks if he knows Tsukasa's past, to which Yusaku responds negatively, leaving Chitu deeply offended. She vents, saying she can't understand how Tsukasa could have fallen in love with someone like him. Later, at Yusaku's apartment, Tsukasa asks him to turn on the television to watch a movie, but looking around, she realizes he doesn't even have a TV. Intrigued, she asks why, and Yusaku, a bit embarrassed, explains that he is not a big fan of movies. This leaves her somewhat disappointed, as she hoped he would share with her the excitement of watching films, and not do it just out of courtesy. Tsukasa begins to explain that, for her, cinema is something deeper, involving real feelings and empathy. Then they go to a shopping center to buy a television, and Yusaku starts analyzing prices and specifications. However, Tsukasa comments that it doesn't matter much, as the essential thing is to experience the cinematic experience, regardless of the image clarity. Hours later, Yusaku talks with Kanen at the public baths about the marriage proposal he made to Tsukasa at the church. Kanen in a humorous tone says it was about time. She asks when Yusaku will give the ring, but he, smiling shyly, replies that he thinks Tsukasa doesn't see it as essential. Kanen explains to Yusaku that all the objections Tsukasa makes about expensive or fancy things are actually a gentle way of protecting his ego, as she is a generous person who cares about his feelings. This leads Yusaku to reflect more deeply on Tsukasa and the reasons why she acts so discreetly regarding certain luxuries. A few minutes later, Tsukasa comes out of the bath all refreshed, and Yusaku watches her with a sweet look. As if it were the first time he saw her that way, Tsukasa notices his gaze and both remain silent, a little embarrassed, saying goodbye to Kanen before heading to the apartment. On the way, Yusaku mentions that after lunch he will have to go to work and should only return around 9 at night since he had missed the previous day without notice. Tsukasa feels a bit sad about the idea of spending the day alone. In the park, Yusaku notices that they are completely alone. Tsukasa is sitting on a bench looking at the lake and appearing introspective. As he observes her more closely, he notices that she seems down, perhaps because she knows she'll be alone for hours. He approaches and holds her hand, surprising Tsukasa. Then, without saying anything, he kisses her passionately. In the distance, Charlotte and Aurora watch the scene. Hours later, Yusaku says goodbye to Tsukasa, saying he needs to go to work. She, a little apprehensive, asks if everything is okay, and he replies that he was just wondering if she would still be there when he returned. Tsukasa, smiling, responds that if he wants to be sure, he can come back earlier. This motivates him to hurry at work and return as soon as possible. During his shift, Yusaku can't get Tsukasa out of his mind, nor the kiss they shared in the park. He sees her as so charming and fragile, sad because he has to leave for work, and this affects him deeply. He starts to wonder how he could avoid feeling lonely when she's not around, and even more, how to ensure that she also doesn't feel lonely in his absence. While reflecting, he recalls the moment he held Tsukasa's hand and what Kanem said about the engagement ring, realizing that something symbolic could represent that they will never be separated, whether by distance or circumstances. Later, when he arrives home, Yusaku is greeted by Tsukasa, who has already prepared dinner. This makes him smile, comforted by seeing her there, waiting for him. After a pleasant time together, he asks if she would like a promise ring, as a symbol of the true love he feels for her. Tsukasa, however, responds that she doesn't think it's necessary. After all, they are already married. Yusaku is surprised by their response and tries to introduce the idea of a wedding ring with diamonds, but Tsukasa quickly corrects him, explaining that wedding rings are not exactly what he thought. She says that the engagement ring is given at the proposal, while the wedding ring is exchanged at the ceremony. The engagement ring is usually more showy and reserved for special occasions, with a high symbolic value, something close to 3 months' salary. This explanation leaves Yusaku somewhat impressed, surprised by the symbolic value of the gesture, but also confused by the complexity of these traditions. The conversation deepens and turns into a reflection on love and commitment between them. Yusaku, although caught off guard, feels that he is better understanding Tsukasa's feelings and customs. They continue talking with affection and attention in the air, already sharing the understanding that, for both, the most important thing is not the value of things, but the sincere love they feel for each other. The next day, upon arriving at the jewelry store, Yusaku is astonished by the prices of the rings. Some exceed 3 months' salary, which leaves him completely bewildered. He asks the saleswoman why they are so expensive, and she explains that those diamonds are rare, completely genuine, and that the store is the only one in the world offering these gems. She also says that engagement rings should be special, but not overly flashy. They should shine like the everyday love of couples. Simple, but with its own shine. This makes Yusaku reflect and he decides to buy a ring. But to his surprise, Tsukasa appears in the store, pulls him back and firmly says she didn't expect him to actually buy those expensive rings. She suggests they visit another store with more affordable prices. A few minutes later, they are already in another place with much more affordable pieces, which surprises Yusaku. He asks Tsukasa which ring she would like, saying he wants to buy one for her so she never feels alone. Tsukasa, touched by the gesture, kisses his cheek, which surprises him. Still not understanding, he asks why, and she responds that she cares a lot about him. Seeing him trying so hard to make her happy, she felt the urge to express her gratitude. With the rings purchased, the two return to the apartment. Tsukasa tells Yusaku that she will never forget that day, and how he showed so much affection and care. She believes that over time, their love will only shine more, like the sparkle of the rings. The next morning, Tsukasa wakes up early and starts making coffee. Yusaku, still thinking about the previous day, notices how the bed feels small and how the apartment seems cramped for two. He starts considering a move, maybe to a more spacious house with its own bathroom. Determined, he asks Tsukasa if she would like to move to a bigger place, since the current space seemed limited. Tsukasa, surprised, says she wouldn't like to, as she has already gotten used to the small environment. At night after work, Yusaku walks to the building and thinks about how to bring up the subject of moving without making her feel bad or think that he wants to distance himself. Shortly after, they go out to the park to talk about it. Yusaku asks if she feels uncomfortable with the apartment and she says no, that she's actually fine there. She also mentions that moving would be expensive. Yusaku, trying to cheer her up, talks about the advantages, like having a projector or a mini cinema, which excites Tsukasa. Walking back, Tsukasa asks if he already has permission from his parents to move. Yusake, without thinking twice, says he will ask right away. Only then does he realize he can't explain to his parents that he got married, which makes him a little uneasy. When Yusake calls his parents, they are surprised and ask to meet Tsukasa before approving the move. Somewhat nervous, Yusake tells Tsukasa about the situation and says they will need to go to his parents' house for her to be introduced. This makes him slightly anxious because he knows his parents have eccentric behavior and might make unusual comments. Tsukasa calmly asks him to relax, saying she understands everything. But before the trip, she requests that Yusake buy a camera because she wants to capture the moment. Reflecting on everything that is happening, Yusake realizes that this, in a way, resembles a honeymoon. The journey to his parents' residence is long, and to get there, they will need to take a train to Nara, which makes everything more special since they will be together for a long time. After acquiring the camera, Yusake starts taking several photos of Tsukasa, capturing her expressions and details. Tsukasa, with a playful smile, takes the camera from Yusake and takes a picture of him, saying that now she has a memory of him too. Already in Kyoto, upon arrival, Yusake asks if Tsukasa would like to stroll around the city. Excited, she says she wants to visit some bakeries and manga museums, but Yusake, wanting to share something historical with her, suggests visiting ancient sites in the city. Tsukasa, a little reluctant, ends up accepting when she notices that he was a bit upset that she wasn't excited about the idea. Later, he takes her to a store and buys a kimono for her. When she puts it on, he watches her enchanted and says she looks wonderful, making Tsukasa blush. At that moment, Shito appears and interrupts, saying they were too mushy, as if they needed everyone's approval to show affection. Yusake calmly responds that he just wanted more people to support their relationship, because he believes it would make their love stronger. This seems to move Tsukasa, who begins to understand even more how much Yusake means to her. Shito, understanding the situation, asks if Tsukasa would like to accompany his companions to a cafe and a manga museum, which excites Tsukasa. She agrees, but before leaving, Shito tells Yusake that on that day he should treat her like Matsuka to see if he really deserves his sister. Yusake, without thinking twice, agrees and takes Shito for a walk around the city, imagining how things might develop. Meanwhile, Tsukasa is at a bakery with Aurora and Charlotte, and both start asking how she fell in love with Yusake. A little embarrassed, she doesn't respond immediately, but Charlotte insists on asking what she appreciates most about him. Finally, Tsukasa replies that she loves the careful and gentle way he speaks. This surprises the two, who say that Yusake seems to be the ideal type for her. Tsukasa blushes and tries to change the subject. Later, already on the subway, Yusake and Tsukasa head to Nara, where his parents live. Nervous, she asks if she will be well received or if they will face resistance. Yusake reassures her, saying he will take care of everything. A few minutes later, they arrive at the house, but Tsukasa becomes even more uneasy upon seeing that something is happening at the door. To her surprise, Kanoka, Yusake's mother, was already waiting for them. Upon introducing herself, Kanoka, visibly tense, asks them to make themselves comfortable, but quickly leaves, saying she will prepare the tea. After some time, everyone is at the table, and Tsukasa, still a bit tense, gives a gift to Yusake's parents. She says it's something simple but made with care. However, the parents do not show much reaction, which makes her uncomfortable. Yusake, trying to ease the atmosphere, asks his parents to act normally, since they were the ones who invited them. The two, however, say they were not emotionally prepared and ask to speak privately with Tsukasa. After some time, they go to Yusake's room, but since he only came for the movie, the room is empty. Observing the place, Yusake asks Tsukasa what her father had said, but she, with a mysterious smile, replies that it's a secret. At that moment, Kanoka enters the room with a smile and informs them that Tsukasa's mattress is in the closet and their bed will be next to it. Not understanding, Yusake goes to get the mattress and upon seeing it, realizes that for the first time, he and Tsukasa will sleep together. He then understands what his mother meant. Tsukasa, already understanding the mood, goes to change. When the two are lying down, Yusake with some shyness asks if she would mind sleeping on his arm. She, without hesitation, agrees, and Yusake, happy to have her there, starts to get uncomfortable because his arm falls asleep. Noticing, Tsukasa asks if he is okay, and he replies that he is not. She tries to change position to relieve the pressure, but only worsens the pain. Feeling guilty, she returns to the mattress, saying she doesn't want to make him more uncomfortable. Yusake, smiling, asks for a goodnight kiss, making it clear he would like her to take the initiative. Embarrassed, Shishi complies with the request. The next morning, Tsukasa realizes she needs to get ready in front of Yusake. Since he is sleeping next to her, she decides to hurry, thinking that if she does it quickly, he won't even notice. Yusake, although not completely asleep, decided to give her privacy and turned to the other side not to disturb her. Sometime later, Tsukasa leaves the house to watch the sunrise. Yusake's father, upon finding her awake so early, asks about his son. Tsukasa, smiling, replies that he was still sleeping because he couldn't rest well during the night. Yusake's father, not knowing much what to say, remains silent. But Tsukasa breaks the ice and comments that Yusake told her he was an archaeologist. The man, a bit nervous, confirms, and Tsukasa, curious, asks if she could visit his research site. Yusake's father, named Yusake Surprise, agrees. As soon as Tsukasa enters, she shows a great interest in the ancient manuscripts, which surprises even herself. At that moment, Yusake appears and asks what is happening. Tsukasa, with a slight smile, explains that she was just talking about his father's work. Yusake, suspicious, asks why she would be so interested, since she always said she didn't like history. Tsukasa tries to respond, but they are interrupted by Yusake's mother, who calls them for breakfast. Shortly after, back at the apartment, Tsukasa excitedly suggests they go out to photograph ancient monuments in Nara. She wanted to capture that moment because in Kyoto Shito had disrupted the plans. Yusuke, charmed by the proposal, immediately agrees, and the two start taking photos of the historical sites. Yusuke is surprised to notice that Tsukasa knows much more about history than she had shown before. She begins to talk about how, over 1,400 years ago, people lived, laughed, loved, and cried, just like today. This makes him reflect, but Tsukasa, with a gentle smile, comments that at least now it's possible to eternalize moments with photos and videos as she had suggested, so they would never forget that day. Yusuke, moved, declares in front of her that his wife is the most beautiful in the universe, leaving her blushing and surprised, but also happy. With a light laugh, Tsukasa says she has stopped recording and that all those images of Yusuke would be shown to the in-laws. Yusake, curious, asks since when she became so close to his father. Tsukasa, with a mischievous air, says that's a secret, but recalls what Yusake's father told her. He had knelt and thanked her deeply for saving his son's life. On the day the police called to inform about Yusake's accident, his world collapsed. But upon learning that it was Tsukasa who saved him, he felt as if he had come back to life. He didn't know how such clumsy parents could have raised such an intelligent son, but he was sure that thanks to her, Yusake was alive. Therefore, he only had words of gratitude and wishes for happiness, prosperity, and unconditional support. Upon returning home, they discovered that the apartment had been destroyed by a fire. They are in shock, and Yusake goes to the kids who were there, asking if they were okay. They confirmed that, despite everything, they were fine, explaining that lightning had struck the apartment, causing the fire. Meanwhile, Tsukasa watches all of this, feeling a growing admiration for him. She realizes that even with all the destruction caused by the fire, he doesn't seem concerned about material possessions. On the contrary, his first reaction was to care about the people around him. This makes her see him in an even more special way, as someone truly amazing. Later in the afternoon, Yusake and Tsukasa are together in the new apartment. Tsukasa mentions that they would need to do the laundry, as there were already many dirty clothes piled up. Yusake smiles and says he would take care of everything himself, but Tsukasa, a little embarrassed, insists that she didn't want him to see her underwear. Noticing her concern, he suggests washing everything separately so she feels more comfortable. Tsukasa, thinking it would be too much work for Yusake to handle everything alone, decides she will take care of it herself later. On the way to the laundry, Tsukasa is impressed by the size of the place. They get ready to wash the clothes, and as they sit down to wait, both can't help but feel a bit embarrassed to be doing this together. Tsukasa, with a slightly embarrassed expression, comments that she never imagined she would be washing clothes next to her husband. Yusake, with a shy smile, says he had never seen her wearing sports clothes, which makes her blush even more. Tsukasa casually admits that she didn't usually wear this type of clothing because deep down she had almost nothing underneath, since practically everything was lost in the fire. Later, the two are sitting down to eat, and Yusake observes with admiration the meal Tsukasa prepared. He is surprised because even with few utensils available, the rice and the rest of the dish were impeccable. He asks how she managed to do it, and she simply replies that she used an old clay pot, a relic from the past. This impresses him even more. Tsukasa, with a shy smile, comments that since that day she wants her food to be the only one Yusake wants to eat. This makes Yusake blush, as he knows that what she prepares carries enormous value, especially since she is his wife. Satisfied, he feels immense pleasure, not just from the food, but also from her dedication. After the meal, Tsukasa, smiling, says that Yusake can feel free to watch TV, but he quickly remembers that the set there wasn't much. At that moment, Kana enters the room bringing a melon that some customers had given them. The two are very happy with the gesture, especially because after everything that happened with the fire, a simple act of kindness became something very special. Kana, smiling, quickly says goodbye, making it clear she didn't want to disturb their evening, but also asks them not to make too much noise. Yusake and Tsukasa, a little embarrassed, decide to cut the melon and taste it. The flavor is incredible. And during the moment, Yusake asks Tsukasa to open her mouth so he can give her a piece. Tsukasa, usually shy in this kind of situation, hesitant at first but ends up giving in. Yusaku, enchanted by the moment, watches her closely, which makes her even more nervous but also happy with his gentleness. Seeing her like this, Yusaku can't help but feel completely in love. The next day, Yusaku receives a call from his boss informing him that he could visit some apartments while they awaited the reconstruction of what was destroyed in the fire. Kana, who was next to him, asks if he was leaving already, but Yusaku explains that it wasn't certain yet. Then he tells Tsukasa about the opportunity, and she, excited, agrees to go with him. Later, they arrive in front of a large and luxurious apartment, which makes them both doubt if they were in the right place. Yusaku finds this strange, thinking that the owner might not have the means to offer something so sophisticated, but still, Tsukasa decides to enter, driven by curiosity. Inside, they are impressed by the size and beauty of the place. Each room seems more charming than the last, and even the bathtub catches their attention. Yusaku, thinking out loud, comments that one day he would like to have a house like this to live alongside Tsukasa. The next day, she too, upon arriving at Yusaku's old house, realizes that everything was destroyed by the fire. She falls into despair seeing the empty place and immediately orders her servants to search for Tsukasa. Aurora calmly informs that the neighbors said the apartment was completely consumed by the flames. She too, now worried about her sister, tries to stay in control but becomes increasingly anxious. She then demands that the servants find Tsukasa as quickly as possible. Upon seeing Tsukasa walking down the street, she too intercepts her and asks where she has been living. Tsukasa, noticing her sister's approach, chooses not to respond directly. Instead, she simply greets her and continues walking calmly, without giving many explanations. When they arrive at the new place, Tsukasa, with a subtle smile, lets her in and reveals that she is now living in a simple space, highlighting that at least she has gas and the essentials to get by. She too, still suspicious, enters the place, and Tsukasa takes the opportunity to leave discreetly, feeling victorious for having fooled her sister once again. Meanwhile, Tsukasa meets with Yusaku, who is excited about various discoveries, including things related to consoles and video games, as well as utensils like a mold for making dumplings. At this moment, the idea of having a small dumpling party comes up. Something simple and tasty. They decide to invite friends and start thinking about how to make the gathering fun. The next day, Yusaku is on a work call, dealing with several urgent tasks. Tsukasa watches with concern as he seemed to be doing everything too quickly, almost like a car without brakes. She, with a gentle smile, tells him to take things more calmly. Yusaku, although he smiles at the comment, cannot avoid the rush and soon starts opening several spreadsheets and working non-stop. Tsukasa, worried, stays by his side, helping where she can. However, after some time, Yusaku starts to feel very tired and even begins to cough a lot. Tsukasa, upon realizing this, becomes alarmed and immediately runs to get a thermometer. Yusaku tries to say it's nothing, but she insists, and upon measuring his temperature, discovers he has 38 degrees Celsius. She panics, worried about his condition, and says they need to go to the hospital immediately. Later, Yusaku is lying in bed, still feeling unwell, even after taking all the medication Tsukasa gave him. He tries to calm himself, saying that he will get better soon. Tsukasa, on the other hand, is more worried than ever. She assures him that while he is resting, she will take care of everything. With a slight smile, she says that his body is strong and he doesn't need to worry. Hours later, Yusaku wakes up feeling much better. Tsukasa feels relieved to see him well again and asks if he wants anything. He replies that he's fine as he is, which leaves her a bit disappointed because she wanted to help more. To please her, he asks her to bring something for him to wear, as he had sweated a lot and needed to change clothes. Feeling more at ease, Tsukasa suggests they sleep a little more. Yusaku, with a weak smile, agrees, and they both lie down. At night, Yusaku, still a bit embarrassed, starts to feel Tsukasa's hand, which makes him uneasy, thinking it might just be his imagination. However, he soon realizes that she was hugging him from behind, which makes him feel extremely loved and safe. He turns to look at her, and Tsukasa, with a gentle smile, says she's happy to see him better. Yusaku, touched by her concern, smiles and says that, in fact, he worked so hard to get better because he wanted to go with her to the summer festival. This makes her smile even more, realizing how much he is dedicated to their relationship. He then leans in to kiss her, but suddenly starts tickling her neck. Tsukasa quickly pushes him away, lightly scolding him, saying that even though she's happy he's better, she still wants him to take care of himself and not overdo it. Yusaku, a little embarrassed, apologizes and decides to just settle down to sleep without any more teasing. The next day, Kana, with a mischievous smile, suggests to Tsukasa that if she really wants to go to the festival, it would be a good idea to wear a yukata, as it would make her look even more beautiful and attractive. Tsukasa, with a suspicious look, considers Kana's suggestion, who always seems to think about things in a somewhat provocative way. Even so, Kana, with her usual energy, had already arranged 2 yukatas for them. Tsukasa, with his slight smile, shows the clothes to Yusaku, explaining that they were tailor-made as Kana had said. Yusaku, without hesitation, says she would look beautiful and asks her to turn around so he can see her better. A bit shy, she complies, while he is impressed by her beauty, especially seeing her wearing the yukata. When Tsukasa finishes changing, she asks Yusaku to get ready before they leave and unexpectedly gives him a kiss, which surprises him. He smiles, a little nervous but clearly happy with her initiative. Later, the two leave the room and Yusaku, still with a silly smile on his face, grabs his camera, wanting to capture several moments of Tsukasa in her yukata, as she looks simply enchanting. They head to the festival and upon arriving, decide to eat something. Tsukasa comments that although they had already prepared food at home, festival food always seems tastier. Thus, they end up buying various typical treats. Yusaku, happy to see her so excited, accompanies her as she tries everything. Tsukasa, with her heart full of joy, is happy to be there with him, experiencing simple yet special moments. After eating, they find a stall where Kana and Shitu are working. Tsukasa, with a mischievous smile, comments that she is very good at the game and could catch all the fish quickly. She then offers Yusaku the chance to try. Even though he's nervous, he accepts, trying to appear confident despite knowing he's not very skilled. The moment he tries to catch a fish, the net breaks, revealing his lack of skill. Tsukasa, seeing this scene, can't hold back her laughter, but looks at him fondly, finding the situation amusing. After a while, the two walk to a small shrine. Tsukasa, next to Yusaku, makes a silent prayer for his health and for peace in the world. Yusaku, touched by this, comments on how few people usually care about him, which makes Tsukasa reflect on how important he is in her life. She looks at him tenderly and begins to speak sweetly about how essential he is to her. Yusaku, smiling at her sincerity, hugs her, feeling a deep connection between them. When they are about to kiss, Kana suddenly appears, warning that it's time to watch the fireworks and that they shouldn't be exchanging kisses there. Both immediately blush, a little embarrassed, but at the same time happy with the moment. As they prepare to watch the fireworks, Yusaku looks at the photos he took of Tsukasa, smiling as he realizes how beautiful she is. He thinks to himself that that moment beside her will become an unforgettable memory. But he also starts to reflect on the future. He knows that next year he will want to relive all of that again with her, and maybe even do more things together. Then, the two walk to the area where the fireworks will start. Yusaku feels deeply grateful to be experiencing that moment with Tsukasa, realizing that the happiness he feels with her is exactly everything he always wanted. As the fireworks light up the sky, Yusaku and Tsukasa exchange a look full of complicity, feeling that as long as they stay together, any difficulty that arises will be possible to face. In silence, he wonders how he can be so happy beside someone so special. Looking at her, he is certain that she will forever be his partner and the great love of his life, and that together they can overcome anything. Thus ends the anime. And if you've reached this part of the video, comment the secret word love and I'll give you a heart. Remember that you can suggest which anime you want to see summarized in the next video, as I always read all the comments.